All right, so this 25-year-old franchise has been brought back to life with a brand new movie called Final Destination Bloodlines. And with that movie coming out, I figured it'd be a perfect time to rank all 6 Final Destination movies. And so the Final Destination franchise originally started out as a spec script written by Jeffrey Riddick, written for the X-Files. But Jeffrey had a buddy that worked at New Line Cinema who kind of saw the script and was like, hey man, I think you got a little something here. You should try to write this into a feature-length movie. And yeah, of course, the rest is kind of history. Here we are 6 movies later, so a 25-year franchise so far. We start off Frosted Tips, puka shell necklaces, and here we are in 2025 all these years later. So how the hell do I rank the Final Destination franchise? Well, coming in last place at number 6 is going to be, of course, it's gotta be the Final Destination, Final Destination 4, Final Destination 3D, whatever the hell you want to call it, from 2009. Now, just basically considering everything that is in this movie, everything that we've came to know and love, the foundation of the Final Destination franchise that this movie does, it's really hard for me to consider a scenario where, for me personally, this movie is not in last place. I feel like this is a clear last place movie in the franchise just for me. Not the greatest opening premonition by any means, not the greatest deaths in the franchise, although there are some really fun deaths, which I'll talk about in just a second. Clearly not the best characters in this franchise by any means. And then the flash forward sequence at the end of the movie also, that this franchise is obviously known for, is one of the worst in the franchise as well. But also with that said, and despite the negativity around this movie and the fact that I have this movie in last place, I mean, this movie still to this day is surprisingly the highest grossing movie in this entire franchise. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the whole 3D push and the extra prices of the tickets and all that kind of stuff. But this movie made almost $190 million. I do think Bloodlines is going to surpass that. It probably looks like it will, but still, there's something to be said about that. But of course, with this opening premonition, I personally do feel like they kind of bit off more than they could chew. I mean, there is a ton of just crazy and janky CGI in this opening premonition at this NASCAR race. And I really do think it would have been much more effective if they would have set this race at night. That really would have helped to hide some of the crazy CGI and 3D stuff that they were going for that just ended up looking really just weird. And yeah, you could argue this is Final Destination. So of course, these kills are supposed to look pretty ridiculous with crazy CGI and gore. It's not supposed to look all that believable. It's supposed to pretty much make you laugh the majority of the time and shock you at that same time. But I mean, we're 4 movies into this franchise at this point, and I feel like this CGI and just the look of the kills and the gore and how they do that all in post looks by far the worst in this franchise. And yeah, in this opening premonition, there are some crazy kills, there are some moments that are going to make you laugh, and there's just a lot of gore in general. There's not a lot of anxiety in this scene either, which is such a key component in this franchise for me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of you as well. But really also one of the biggest gripes that I have with this opening premonition in 4 is just kind of its relatability other than that stuff that I just mentioned. It's a NASCAR race. So, you know, is it something that a lot of us come across on a daily basis? I mean, especially if you live in Europe or somewhere just abroad outside of the United States, this is going to be very much unrelatable to you. Whereas stuff like airplanes, we go on airplanes all the time, a lot of us. Hell, even roller coasters. Pretty much all of us have probably been on a roller coaster at some point and also been probably a little bit nervous on that roller coaster also at some point. Even the second movie, a highway pileup, that's crazy, with the logging truck. I mean, those are things we are going to see on a pretty regular basis. And I know certain parts of the United States, there's a lot of this NASCAR stuff that's pretty, popular in those areas, but it's just not that relatable. So that also knocks this premonition down a bit for me. Speaking of the effects in this movie and stuff, in this movie, they try to implement something that's a little bit new, I guess, for the franchise. Our main character, Nick, is starting to have these small little visions and hints at what's going to happen, who's going to possibly die next. And the CGI, I mean, honestly, it looks like a cartoon. This is a big theatrical release movie, and it looks like it's something that would be straight to the Sci-Fi Channel or something like that. But I will say, With that said, some of the death scenes outside of the premonition are actually pretty damn good in this movie and very relatable, which does add something to this movie. I mean, the next time you're at a gas station filling up and it's like, hey, would you like to buy a car wash today for $5? I'm sure after watching this movie, a lot of us were like, you're not getting me, bitch. Even the pool death in this movie, I think, is a fun one with a little bit of anxiety, and I think it's pulled off well, even though it's obviously not the bloodiest kill in this franchise or even the bloodiest kill in this movie. There is some gore, definitely. But to me, that pool kill, I actually think it really works, and it might be my favorite kill in this, my favorite death scene in this entire movie. I just like the way it's all pulled off. Also, it plays on the swimming pool thing, the public pool thing. So, I mean, a lot of us, next time you're diving down there and you see the drain, you're going to immediately probably think about this movie. And now, I did miss this movie when it was out in theaters back in 2009, but I would imagine that if you saw this in the theater, that whole ending to this movie probably kind of worked, because you're sitting in a movie theater watching a movie theater explode, and just the buildup and the anxiety of all of that. That's kind of a meta, fun moment, I would imagine. And I do like that scene. I like how it all gets pulled off. Is it by any means the best kind of ending to a Final Destination movie in this franchise? No, not at all. But there are some fun moments, especially that escalator kill. I mean, it plays on that. A lot of people nervous about escalators, and that is a brutal, juicy, crunchy, and just overall nasty kill. But with that said, of course, the classic Final Destination fast forward scene at the very end of the movie, reminding you that death is coming for all of us, and death definitely does not believe in happy endings. The one in this movie at the cafe, they get hit by a semi-truck, just letting us know that, yeah, death's plan all along, I guess, was they were supposed to be in this situation, regardless of whatever happened. But that whole flash forward sequence, probably the worst in the franchise, just very tame and not great at all. To go alongside this cast, which by any means is probably the worst cast in this entire franchise, right there with like Final Destination 5, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But yeah, there you go. Final Destination 4, yeah, gotta be in last place for me just because of those things that I mentioned. Oh, and by the way, guys, really quick, my merch store is now live. If you want to go and grab something that's channel related, Mad Blood branded, that kind of a thing. Something like this long sleeve t-shirt, which honestly might be my favorite thing in the entire shop. Super, super comfy. But one of the best parts about it is it's got the logo right there, which I think looks really clean, but it's all stitched in. You know, it's not like that iron-on cheap stuff that, you know, after you dry it and after you wash it, eventually kind of wears away. No, this is really, really high quality, and I just like it a lot. Really, really comfy. So, yeah, I will leave a link to this specific shirt if you want to check that out down in the comments as well, and then the general store link will be in the description. All right, up next at number 5 is going to be Final Destination 5 from 2011. And right away with this movie, as it opens up, these characters are getting ready for this work retreat. It lets me know right away that these are going to be some of the worst characters in this entire franchise. But as they get onto this bridge, I mean, it does give us one of the best opening premonitions in this entire franchise. And for somebody like me who grew up in Northern California, who grew up driving across a ton of scary ass bridges over water, this opening sequence works for me and is very, very relatable. And I think about it pretty much every single time I drive across one of these bridges. I mean, I grew up hearing stories about the 1989 San Francisco earthquake, the Bay Bridge, a bridge I've driven across a million times. The top of it collapsing and killing, 40 or 50 people. Some scary shit. And it also works because, that whole thing about me being pretty much deathly afraid of heights as well. But I also think it looks really good. I mean, we just talked about Final Destination 4 and that opening premonition, which doesn't really look very good. I think in 5, this premonition looks great, looks very real, and there is a ton of gore, some hilarious moments. I mean, when that guy gets those little metal pole things through his head, his eye droops down, and then he falls and splats on the little foundation of the bridge. I mean, that's pretty damn hilarious. But Yeah, this entire opening premonition really top notch, and I'm sure traumatized a lot of people. This is also the movie where they implement the whole kill or be killed scenario in the Final Destination franchise, thanks to Tony Todd. Rest in peace, the legend Tony Todd. So great seeing him in Bloodlines, by the way, which we'll talk about in just a second. But yeah, this angle of, okay, these people, there's a lot of people they really care about dying around them, girlfriends, family members, whatever have you. It's pretty traumatic. What would happen to somebody? They could potentially go completely unhinged, especially with the knowledge of that they could survive if they just happen to kill somebody who maybe they think doesn't quite deserve to live as much as they think they deserve to live. So we get that angle of it. There's a little fight sequence where one of the characters is trying to kill the girlfriend of our main character. I think that fight and everything that goes down with that, it's pretty fun. It's not a mind-blowing sequence or anything like that, but it's also kind of fresh for the franchise as well. And like I mentioned just a second ago with the characters, I mean, this cast in this movie tiptoes that line of being awful, but just kind of manageable at times. It bounces back and forth between that. And I get this movie and the characters are supposed to be very ridiculous and over the top, kind of like caricatures of actual humans. But that doesn't really work, especially in comparison to some of the better movies in this franchise, Final Destination Bloodlines, which has a great cast as well. In this movie, the cast is pretty terrible. But with that said, in Final Destination 5, we do get some of the most memorable death scenes in this entire franchise. I mean, come on, the LASIK death, the gymnastics death, even the massage parlor death. Great. I mean, some great anxiety with that gymnastics death in particular. A lot of buildup with that. You've got the little screw there on the balance beam. She's barely making it over. And you're like, oh, okay, she's good. She's almost getting electrocuted at that moment. Great buildup, great anxiety in that entire scene. Also just works for me in particular because my family is kind of a gymnastics family. My wife grew up being a gymnast. We've gone to a lot of gymnastics meets in our life and stuff like that. So it's cool just for me personally. But with that said, these deaths are a lot of fun and very memorable, but a little bit more niche, not quite relatable to a lot of people, right? I mean, I'm sure it prevented a lot of people from getting eye surgery, LASIK, whatever you want to call it, but still, that's kind of niche. That's not something you come across on a daily basis all the time. Gymnastics, also very niche. Now, with that said, yes, there is a time jump in this movie like Final Destination likes to do. But in this movie, it's not just a little fun little send-off for the movie. No, it is the biggest twist in this entire franchise. Which, yes, of course, after the big ending to this movie before the flash forward, our characters we transport 2 weeks later, and they're finally heading to Paris because the main character is a chef or a cook, whatever, and he's going to finish more of his training over in Paris, which, if you've paid attention to this franchise, is probably going to sound pretty familiar because, yes, it is the return of Flight 180, which I know for a lot of people was pretty mind-blowing. I know for me, I was like, holy shit, is that Alex? Okay, all right, I can see what we're doing here and I'm ready for it. But in Final Destination 5, that's not it. Not only do we get one of the biggest twists in this entire franchise, but we also just get a hilarious, great little send-off at the end too, with the one guy involved in all of this. He thinks he traded places with the asshole coworker. He's at his celebration of his shitty life and finds out that that guy he traded places with was actually he was terminally ill, basically. He had like an enlarged blood vessel in his brain and was supposed to die any minute now. And he's like, oh, shit, not the greatest news to hear. And then bam, the tire of the plane from Flight 180 falls through the roof, sends a piece of his body right at the camera as it cuts to credits. Just a really funny and classic Final Destination ending. And now, yeah, I have this movie at number 5 in the franchise. It kind of seems like I've said a lot of good things about this movie. And yeah, there are a lot of good things in this movie. But for me, this movie kind of works in a V shape, which I've mentioned before. Great opening premonition. So we're starting off really high. But most of the stuff in the middle of this movie, I could do without. It really goes downhill in the middle of this movie. All the stuff about the breakup and should we head to Paris? I don't know. That all stuff. I could do without all of that. But then we go right back up to a really fun twist and a really fun ending as well. And yeah, Final Destination 5, it doesn't have the nostalgia or really the charm of the early 2000s like the first 3 movies have. but does definitely have some fun moments in it. All right, so these next 4 movies I'm going to talk about, from here on out, all of these movies are very solid Final Destination movies. Really good premonitions, really good deaths, fun characters, fun endings overall. So these can be jumbled in a lot of different ways, but right now I feel pretty damn confident this movie coming in at number 4 has got to be at number 4 for me, because obviously some of the reasons I'll talk about in just a second. So coming in at number 4 is going to be the newest movie in the franchise, Final Destination Bloodlines. And yeah, after this franchise being away for 14 years, you would expect this new movie to be a little different, to feel a little bit more modern, a little bit unique, because that time period that's a pretty good gap in the franchise. And it is. I mean, right away, we're in the late 1960s, which feels unique as well. And there's a lot of stuff, especially in that opening premonition, that feels new, and like they're pushing things forward a bit, especially with the technology and all of that. While at the same time, this movie doesn't shy away from the foundation of what Final Destination fans love about this franchise. And there's a great blend of that with new stuff, but also staying true to its true roots. What's also cool about this movie as well is it gives us the origin story to Tony Todd's character. Again, rest in peace, Tony Todd. What a legend in the horror genre and movies just in general, and in this franchise as well. Just a legend, will very much be missed. And this is a great send-off for his character. It's revealed that he was the little boy in the premonition to this movie, and it just kind of shows his relationship to death and everything going on in this franchise a bit. Of course, we don't get all of it, but a really fun send-off for his character, a man that will just be truly missed in a lot of ways. But yeah, a great little something in this movie. And I've mentioned this before, and yes, we love the actual deaths in the Final Destination franchise and how those are all pulled off. But what I also love about this franchise is the build-up to those scenes, the anxiety, just how it's all starting to unfold, the fake-outs and all of that, which is something, you know, in consideration with Final Destination 4 especially, was definitely missing from that movie and knocked that movie way down for me in the franchise as well. But with this opening premonition in Bloodlines, they do a really, really good job of that, building it all up with the anxiety and the anticipation, how you can see it all unfold before our eyes. I mean, this floor is slowly cracking. There's just little things happening here and there. Shout, that song, great song to use in this opening premonition. It's got like the a little bit quieter now, a little bit louder now, just helping to like ebb and flow that anxiety of the whole scene. But I think they do a really, really good job with that angle in this opening premonition. And now, this isn't the most relatable opening premonition in this entire franchise. I mean, how many of us on a daily, regular basis go in a massive skyscraper like this, especially if it has glass floors? Yeah, a lot of us have done that before, but especially for me personally, it's not something I do on a regular basis. So, you know, that knocks this just a little bit for me, but this is probably the biggest, like most blockbuster feeling premonition in this entire franchise. It's just like massive and crazy and in your face with explosions and all kinds of things going on. And yeah, like I mentioned a second ago, if you're scared shitless of heights like I am, the way they shoot this, especially if you watch it on IMAX or just another big screen, is going to make your knees wobble a little bit. And one thing I do have to mention about Final Destination Bloodlines, which I do think they did a very good job of, is immediately as we're meeting Stephanie and the rest of her family, I'm noticing right away, okay, this actually feels like a real family. These feel like real characters. It's not like some of the other movies in the franchise where, you know, you've got like these caricature type characters, like these crazy over the top frat guys and these weird girls who have like this cliche personality about them that doesn't really feel all that realistic. These feel like real characters that you really root for, and they care about each other, and they're an actual family. I mean, the uncle, for example, like that guy seems like the nicest guy in the entire world. My dumbass should have known that means obviously they are going to brutally massacre this guy. But yeah, you know, I kind of fell for it a little bit, but just a perfect example of how damn good of a job they do with the characters in Bloodlines. But probably my favorite character in this entire movie has got to be Eric. He's like that emo, super sarcastic, funny guy, nonchalant, but also smart at the same time. Very, very similar to Ian from Final Destination 3. Characters I just think personally are perfect for a franchise like this. And yeah, spoiler alert, I really do think they fumbled the bag killing off Eric's character. A crazy, memorable kill. But still, man, he would have been really damn good in future iterations in this franchise. Reminds me right away of Randy in the Scream franchise getting killed off in Scream 2. What a mistake that was, in my opinion. And also, yeah, like I said with Eric, I really do think they fumbled the bag with this one. They should have kept him alive. But yeah, like I just mentioned a second ago, Eric's death is a wild one. So he's not actually in the bloodline because he finds out in the movie that his mom had sex with somebody else and he has another dad. So, surprise, have fun with that one, Eric. But he gets caught in the way because like they mentioned in this movie, when you start fucking with death, bad shit is going to happen, and it does to Eric. I mean, so he's in the hospital. He's next to this MRI machine, which gets turned up to like 1 billion somehow. I don't even know if that's even possible, but basically makes it a giant magnet. And a guy who loves piercings, it's not going to work out too well for you, dude, especially in the certain places where you have those piercings. But his earrings are flying off. His nipple rings are flying off. His Prince Albert, I would assume, is also flying off, but that doesn't kill him. There's a wheelchair behind him, which just absolutely takes him out, is going through his body, folds him in half. Kind of reminds me of that kid in the It miniseries being sucked into the drain by Pennywise in a weird way, but a brutal death for Eric, which, like I said, should have kept him alive. But yeah, the death scenes in Bloodlines are honestly incredible. Some of the best in this entire franchise. They hit all of those beats that we want in this franchise. That's why this ranking is so hard, because especially Final Destination 1 through 3 are so amazing, but Bloodlines is also amazing too. And these death scenes, man, they give you anxiety, they give you some great fake outs, and there's also just pure brutality, and they're also very relatable at the same time. I mean, the lawnmower kill with the uncle playing on the whole family barbecue thing, the whole family get together or whatever, get together with friends in the backyard, playing on that, showing somebody get massacred like that is crazy. But arguably the most memorable and best kill in this entire movie to me, outside of the premonition, is the garbage truck kill. It's got the fake outs with Eric. You think he's on the list. You think he's next. There's the fake outs with the garbage truck. He's playing with the garbage truck. He's like licking it. He's, pretending to spank it and do all that, which is hilarious. But right behind him in the blurry background, all the stuff that Stephanie thought was going to happen to Eric happens to his sister. Wham, bam, she gets thrown into the garbage truck and Stephanie's trying to help her. And yeah, she ends up getting some of her out of the garbage truck. Just unfortunately for her, it's her severed arm. And we just slowly see her head crushing as that whole scene just cuts. It is a great scene, great fake outs, brutality, and just absolutely gory as hell. But definitely a knock that I do have with Final Destination Bloodlines is the whole ending thing at Grandma Iris's house when the mom, Stephanie, and her brother go there to try to tuck mom away for who knows how long so they can all survive. It's just kind of okay to me. It's very predictable. It's not all that shocking. There's not a lot of anxiety. It's just not that great. But the flash forward scene is pretty damn fun. Stephanie, they think she flatlined. Her brother brings her back. So they think that she cheated death because Tony Todd reminds them of Kimberly in the second movie and how she flatlined and that helped her to cheat death. But it turns out as Stephanie's brother's getting ready for prom, one of the dads comes over and says hello, who happens to be a doctor. And he's like, well, not technically. You weren't actually dead. You didn't technically flatline. So they're both just like, oh shit, that's not good. And there's a train coming, so the anxiety's building with that. And then the train just crashes through the trees, and all of that is coming right for them. And then the second you think they're safe, they're like, oh, okay, we're safe. Nope. A little homage to Final Destination 2 and the logging truck. Those logs go right over the train, giving them the old 1-2 punch, taking them both out instantly, and then immediately cutting to credits. Just a really, really fun fast forward scene, and it just classic Final Destination. And yeah, like I mentioned a second ago, I do think this is one of the best casts in this entire franchise. An opening premonition that's very memorable and really pulled off really, really well. And it's just a lot of fun. There are some moments towards kind of the later half of the movie that drag maybe a little bit for me. That ending, like I mentioned, not quite all that great or all that memorable. But yes, still a movie in this franchise that will not only satisfy current Final Destination fans because it still has that blueprint of what we've come to know and love about this franchise, but also is a movie that I do think is good enough that if somebody was kind of on the line, tiptoeing whether or not they were a fan of the franchise or not, it could definitely convert them. And also people, if this is the first Final Destination movie they've ever seen in the franchise, a lot of people will immediately be a fan of the franchise. I've already heard a lot of people say that they took somebody to go see this and they want to watch all the rest of the movies in the franchise. And if you're doing that, just maybe skip that fourth one. Well, I take that back. Watch the fourth one. You got to get the full experience. But still, great to see what Bloodlines is doing for the franchise. All right, so especially these last 3 movies that I'm going to mention on this list, depending on the week, depending on the month, I could have these jumbled in a lot of different ways because I love these 3 movies so much. Great premonitions, great death scenes, fun characters, just they hit all those beats. And not only that, they also have nostalgia for me as well. But right now, I got to put Final Destination 2 from 2003 in the number 3 spot. And I mean, come on, this movie is the definition of a movie given an entire generation trauma about something, that we didn't even experience in real life. Don't even lie to me. Every single time you see a logging truck and you're behind it, you switch lanes. Don't lie to me. I know you do. And so, yeah, Final Destination 2 technically takes place 1 year after Flight 180 and all of that madness. And with this opening premonition in particular, I feel like this is some of the best buildup and anxiety of any moment in this entire franchise. This highway is sunny, but it's kind of wet and it looks clearly a little slippery, but it's kind of subtle, maybe a little hidden at the same time. The cop, his coffee cup is kind of starting to spill over a little bit. You can see that maybe causing an issue. That girl, her windshield is starting to catch on fire. The main girl, her transmission fluid is leaking. And I just feel like it's building and building so well. And I can feel my anxiety building also. But at the same time, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. They only show that logging truck just for a second. So it's kind of keeping you on your toes with these fake outs and just the pure anxiety of everything going on. And yeah, that opening premonition, I mean, come on, this massive car pile up, so much gore and craziness. I also love how it seems like every single car on this entire highway feels like it's, packed full of TNT or something. Immediately when they touch anything, they just explode into oblivion. But also, overall in this movie, the death scenes are great too. I mean, that entire dentist scene with that little shit, that kid's actually kind of similar to the kid in Final Destination Bloodlines now that I think about it, but it plays on the whole thing of, we all hate the dentist. Like, you feel like you're there with him as he's getting his teeth kind of grinded and played with and messed with and all of that. You're just like, God, make it stop. And then he gets brutally crushed. I mean, his mom gets her head crushed in the elevator, playing on an elevator, similar to what they do in Final Destination Bloodlines a bit there. And then that one kill where the guy is working on the car and she's like, you better be careful, all right? And he goes, don't worry about it. I'm a professional, whatever he says. And then bam, the airbag explodes, putting that pipe through her head. She drops the cigarette, which ends up getting the coke head just completely sliced up by the barbed wire fence. Just crazy stuff like that, I feel like is throughout this movie. Now, with that said, I do think the cast in this movie is good. It's not quite on that level of the first movie or Final Destination Bloodlines, but yeah, it definitely gets the job done. It's great to see Clear back in this franchise, not only because she's good in this movie and the first movie, but also brings like some cohesiveness between the two movies, which also that newscaster scene where he's interviewing that guy at the beginning of Final Destination 2, I like that scene. Also adds cohesiveness, makes it feel like the first and the second movie are kind of one in a way. But I do think, unlike Final Destination Bloodlines, where the end is kind of just okay, I think the end to Final Destination 2 is actually pretty intense. You've got the girl kind of giving birth, and you've got the other guy trapped in his hospital bed. As we can see, death is trying to take him. And it feels like those moments in a dream. I don't know if you guys have these dreams as well, but you have those dreams where you can clearly see something happening, especially something dangerous a lot of the times, but you're either moving really slow or you can't move at all. Feels very much like this scene in this movie. Almost feels similar to the roller coaster scene in Final Destination 3. It's like that whole idea of not being in control, I think really works. And it's an intense scene that's building and building and building. And yeah, like I mentioned a second ago, this is the movie where it's like, all right, if you technically die and flatline, you can potentially cheat death, which Tony Todd tells them, which we also see Tony Todd talk about in Final Destination Bloodlines, like I mentioned a second ago. So we see that in this movie. Adds a little something new and unique. It was also a twist because they thought the whole like giving birth thing was going to do the work, but this actually instead was the thing that they needed to do. But what's also great about Final Destination 2 is it gives us just a classic Final Destination, holy shit, laugh your ass off scene in the fast forward moment of this movie at the barbecue. They're all hanging out. You know something's going to happen, but you don't quite know exactly what it's going to be. And then the kid Brian goes and fires up the old grill, and then boom, absolutely just explodes. And the mom is screaming, Brian! And then his arm, falls on her plate. And then we cut to credits. Classic Final Destination. But yeah, Final Destination 2, like I said, this could be jumbled around. Even Bloodlines, maybe in the future will work its way in this top 3 for me. But right now, I do feel like Final Destination 2 has to go in that 3 spot for me. A really, really fun movie. A lot of people consider this the best premonition in this entire franchise. And, I might be one of them. I'm not 100% sure yet. I will have a list on all of that. But yeah, the overall movie, the cast knocks it just a little bit for me. So yeah, number 2, it's got to come in at number 3 for me. All right, up next at number 2 is going to be Final Destination 3 from 2006. And technically this movie takes place 5 years after that first movie. And James Wong, the director of the first movie, is back in this one, back to direct the third movie in the franchise. And a big kind of theme in Final Destination 3 that really works for me is just that idea that I mentioned just a second ago, that idea of control, not being in control, especially in those moments where stuff is going down. And yeah, this is the roller coaster digital camera movie in this franchise. And I'm just glad that it finally paid off for somebody carrying around one of those big ass digital cameras in their pocket during this era. I know I had to do that sometimes a lot. It was pretty annoying. And now looking back, seemed like a pretty dumb idea just to capture the shenanigans we were up to. You guys remember that? Like those Canon power shots or whatever the hell you call them, those massive digital cameras? Because we didn't have iPhones back then. It was a pain in the ass. And yeah, I really, really like this opening premonition a lot at this theme park. You've got it seems like all the people who are in high school together, different personalities, mixing and mashing together, getting on this ride. Great anxiety, great anticipation. I love that it's at night. Like I said, they should have done that with Final Destination 4. I think that would have added a little something and made it look better. But in this scene, they have that, and I think it looks great. And yeah, like I just mentioned a second ago, I think this opening premonition, for me personally, is very relatable. I'm sure for a lot of you, it is as well. I mean, I just went to a theme park a few weeks ago and immediately thought about this movie at times. I also think even all these years later, this opening premonition ages really well and still looks great. And yeah, with this opening premonition, I really do feel like it feels like I am on the ride with them. It's very effective to me. And like I mentioned just a second ago about not feeling in control, I mean, this has got to be one of the best examples of that. Being on a roller coaster, you literally have no control. Your life is in the hands of like some 16-year-old who's actually running the ride. And on top of that, the louder you scream, they're just going to think you're having a better time on the ride if they could even hear you to begin with. It's kind of a perfect example of not being in control, which really works for me, and I'm sure works for a lot of other people out there as well. Also, I really like the cast in this movie personally, especially Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character. Ryan Merriman is also great in this movie as well. I think they're some of the best main characters in this entire franchise, in my opinion, without question. I also mentioned Ian a second ago earlier when I was talking about Eric, and I think Ian's great. Very similar to Eric. They're very similar characters, of course, but just a perfect type of character that works really well for a movie like this that has kind of an underlying theme and just an idea that's very hard to believe for most people. Of course, it sounds completely ridiculous. What do you mean? Death is coming to get us? It's all around us? Ooh, you're feeling wind, so that means that something's coming, or you saw something on your digital camera? That's hard to believe. So a character like Ian plays into that, very sarcastic, makes fun of them, very pessimistic, but also, kind of smart at the same time. Yeah, solid character for this franchise. I also like in this movie the whole like detective angle that they go with for the digital camera pictures. We have to kind of piece together the clues with our main characters, try to figure out who's going to die next, what are some of the hints and stuff. Even though some of the pictures are completely ridiculous, you can't really see at all what's going to happen, nor do they really show you what the characters lead us to believe they're seeing. But I do think the detective angle of this movie is fun. But I mean, come on, one of the biggest feathers in the cap of this movie are the deaths, which are easily some of the most memorable deaths in this entire franchise. I mean, the tanning bed deaths, those two girls during this era, people were tanning everywhere. There was a tanning salon, I swear, on every corner in America. Very relatable for this era, but brutal, holy shit kills. Great transition too between their tanning beds and the casket. Love that. The whole gym sequence with the football player guy, great fake outs. You think maybe he's going to make it because they're there warning him about this, and then all of a sudden, bam, head gets absolutely crushed, splatters all over our main character's face. Just a crazy scene. That's a lot of fun. The Home Depot kill as well. A lot of great anxiety and just fun moments there. One of the worst places you could possibly be in a movie like this, by the way. Even the drive-through kill there. I mean, come on. All of us have been through a drive-through, so it plays off of that. But not only just that, it is a brutal, crunchy, juicy, and nasty kill on top of that. And I think the end of this movie also, some of the movies in this franchise I already mentioned, the ends before the flash forward, not exactly great. I think this one at this whole McKinley tricentennial thing is a lot of fun and also has some fun fake outs and some crazy deaths. What's also great about Final Destination 3 is I feel like it has kind of carved its niche in the franchise. And what I mean by that, it is without question for me, it's the Final Destination movie to watch in the summer. You got roller coasters, you've got kind of the county state fair tricentennial thing going on, the fireworks, all of that. So it's got that niche for itself in the franchise. And overall, yeah, Final Destination 3, just a really, really fun movie in the franchise. All right, and of course, coming in at number 1 is going to be the original Final Destination from 2000, which of course, Flight 180, that iconic opening sequence, the introduction to the franchise. And remember, this movie, the original Final Destination, this is pre-Saw, this is pre-Hostel, this is pre the Texas Chainsaw remake, right? And this movie, in a lot of ways, doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, for kind of being that major bridge between 90s horror and the 2000s horror, where the gore and all the brutality really just went up to an entirely different level. I think this movie really, really did kind of bridge that gap and kind of start that in some ways, even though this is by far the least gory movie in the franchise. But yeah, even though this movie is by far the least gory movie in this franchise, there is just something about this movie that just works for me. I think this is the best movie in regards to just the buildup and anxiety and the fake outs and the subtleties that make this franchise a lot of fun. This movie does that stuff top notch. I also just love the look of this movie, the grain in this movie, the lighting in this movie. It doesn't quite look like a 90s horror movie, but at the same time, it also doesn't look like your prototypical 2000s movie either. It's kind of a perfect blend of the two as far as the way the movie looks. And man, I just think immediately James Wong just does such a great job with the buildup and the anxiety with this opening premonition right away. The little subtleties letting you know something sinister is coming. We don't know what it is yet, but it is definitely coming. And I also think the way it's pulled off, just the idea of having this fear of flying. I would imagine if you do have a really bad fear of flying, that the way that they pulled this off with the way it looks and the shots and like just looking at things on the plane, like that doesn't look right. That looks not quite right. That looks a little loose. I feel like they portrayed that really, really well. And I would imagine if you're afraid of flying, I'm not, but if you are, I feel like you would probably get some similar feelings from this movie. And it's just all just puts me on an edge right away. And so, yeah, this movie does have the advantage of being the first movie in the franchise. So there was this mystery around what is really going on here. There's got to be a reason why these people survived. And there's also this theme of the story of, is all of this just fate? Or can you potentially change your fate? And to talk about Todd's death in this movie just for a second, one of the least gory death scenes in this entire franchise, but one of the best death scenes, in my opinion, in this entire franchise. All the fake outs, the anxiety, this guy's just getting ready for bed, doing a little manscaping, you know, what he's doing. And it's very, very scary and very sinister, and it kind of makes you feel like you don't have any control. Death is really coming for you no matter what you do. His eyes glaze over red as he's choking. His dad is just like steps away, can't do anything about it. It's just pulled off really, really well, and it's very, very intense, and also shows you when death is starting to cover up its own tracks as the liquid like seeps back to where it was. So it basically is making it seem like Todd did this to himself. And there's also that moment in this movie that gives us a little bit of a glimpse at the brutality we're going to start to see more and more and more as the franchise goes along, when Carter's girlfriend is giving him that whole speech about like, wow, you know, whatever, you could just drop dead, and then wham, gets absolutely crushed by that bus. Not only playing on buses, we'll think about this in our everyday life just normally, but is one of those kills in a movie like this that just makes you say, holy shit. After the sound effects and after everything kind of cools off and the theater's kind of quiet, you undoubtedly will hear people say like, oh my, holy shit, that was crazy. The oohs and ahs of all of that. It's one of those deaths, and by far the best like quick death scene in this movie. One of the best I've ever seen in a horror movie just in general, which is a classic death that's not crazy with this big crazy set piece, just pulled off really well. And yeah, one thing I think James Wong did a really smart job of in this movie is, of course, this movie came out in 2000. So during that era, there's a lot of movies with some very questionable CGI. And they probably could have done that with this movie. Could have had some crazy blood, guts, and gore all over the place. And especially in certain scenes where there's lighting, it probably would have looked pretty bad. But fortunately, they decided to not go that route and concentrate more on the tension and the anxiety and the buildup, which, like I mentioned a second ago, it just really works for me. And that's why I wanted to mention that kind of again. And also one of the biggest reasons why I think this movie not only works, but is number one in the franchise for me is because of the cast. I think Devon Sawa is really, really, really great in this movie. I think you can just really see how, everything is really starting to weigh on his character. He's got this mix of sadness, but also at the same time, everything clearly doesn't make any sense. He's trying to figure that out. But also, he can't really share all this information with his parents or the police, because if he shares too much, people are just going to think he's crazy. They're probably going to lock him up. So he's got this inner battle going on. And Devon Sawa just does a great job of that in this movie. I also really like Clear's character in this movie and their dynamic together. And just how they play off of each other, I think adds something great to this movie as well. It's also that classic story, and I've mentioned this before, but it's like a Nightmare on Elm Street, showing these kids on this journey. The police are literally like next door. The parents are there. Anybody who could potentially on the surface help them are there, but they can't go that route. These kids have to figure this out on their own because nobody is going to believe them. And how that all unfolds, watching them discover this stuff and piece together the clues, is something I've always enjoyed, and I think I always will. And in this movie, it's a lot of fun. And also something I feel like is very unique for the first Final Destination movie, especially in comparison, obviously, to this franchise, is this is the one movie in this franchise you could potentially show to a non-horror fan or somebody who's kind of on the border of not being a fan or being a fan, because like I mentioned earlier, it's not like crazy blood, guts, and gore all over the place. It's more like this tense anxiety, almost a thriller type of an experience, of course, with a sci-fi angle and all of that, I think is a lot of fun. Like, this is the Final Destination movie I could probably show, to my mom and just laugh my ass off based off of her reactions and her anxiety of all of that. Probably give her a heart attack. But at the same time, there's something to be said about this movie fitting into that niche in this franchise. But yeah, the original Final Destination, to me, just such a fun movie overall. Great cast, great tension. Love the look of the movie, the nostalgia for me personally is on point, man. The puka shells, the frosted tips, the Abercrombie Fierce Cologne you can smell basically coming through the screen, right? Just an all-time classic in my opinion. And like I mentioned just a second ago, these first 3 movies in the franchise I love so much. And, you know, certain months, certain years of my life could have them jumbled in different ways. But currently, right now, this, of course, is my list. But anyways, everybody, there you go. That is how I rank the entire Final Destination franchise now that Bloodlines is finally out. Let me know down in the comments down below how you rank this franchise. I read every single comment. Would love to see how you guys rank this franchise as well. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. It really helps this video out a lot. Really do appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much. And first of all, I want to thank my channel members and my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for the continued support. Like I said before, you guys really do help to keep the lights on around here, help to keep this channel going. So thank you so much. But if you want to check out some more videos from me right now, go ahead and check out one of these videos next to me. If you don't want to miss future videos on the channel, the best way to do that is to make sure you subscribe and turn on those notifications. All of my social media links will be down below in the description, guys, if you want to go and follow me over there. But anyways, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Really do appreciate it. My name is Matt, and I will talk to you in the next one.